Hello, and welcome to the Game Manager. Because no one starts off knowing how to run a game in Barovia. Today, I want to talk about one of my favorite published modules, Curse of Strahd. And one that I've heard some people don't want to touch with a stick because they had horrible experiences with honestly bad game masters. I think this is honestly pretty sad, so here are my 2 cents on how to run Curse of Strahd and how to understand the module so that you and your players have the best possible experience. Curse of Strahd is a gothic horror campaign. This means that you have to focus on 3 topics. The first one is unease. In gothic horror, a cute doll is terrifying because it appears out of nowhere and it wasn't there 2 seconds ago. The song of a musical box starts in the forest at midnight, accompanied by the laughter of children. No matter how nice those things are, when in this context, they make you feel uneasy, they make you feel uncomfortable, and you want to play into that. The second one is threat. In Curse of Strahd, you want your players to be constantly threatened. You want them to feel scared of that crow that keeps on following them throughout the night. You want them to feel scared of the howls of the wolves in the forest. You want them to feel threatened by the ever-present demon that reigns over this land. And finally, isolation. When your player enters Barovia, the rest of the world ceases to exist. They are isolated from the life they once knew. Any help that would come cannot, because they cannot reach this place. They are isolated from everything they know and everything they love, and there is no way out. Specifically, Curse of Strahd has one more theme, and that is hopelessness. The feeling that no matter what the players do, Barovia will never be a good place. That it's seemingly impossible to beat that monster that reigns supreme. That feeling that there is nothing left to do, and that no matter how hard they try, people will suffer and people will die. Now, this video will contain some pretty major spoilers for Curse of Strahd. If you're playing it, or if you plan to play it, don't do this to yourself. Don't spoil yourself. Wait until you get that experience, and then, after you've played the module, come back. I would love to have you. If you're a game master and you're still here, which I hope you are, then let's get started. Curse of Strahd has 3 parts. Or at least I like to break it into 3 parts. The first one, going from levels 1 to 4. Your players start as weak, frail individuals who can die at basically anything in this horrible, dangerous land. At this point, Strahd doesn't even think about them. They are not in his world yet. The second one, usually going from levels 4 to 7, or whenever they get the artifacts, is when they start getting the hope that they might be able to someday change something. At this point, they can actually start doing things. They can actually help people. However, if Strahd chooses to, he can delete them in any moment. At this moment, they are Strahd's toy. Strahd is bored and he keeps bringing on these adventurers so he can entertain himself. And finally, when they become the enemies of Strahd, when the fight becomes a real possibility, and when they can actually aim to defeat Strahd, who now sees them as her mortal enemies who need to be eradicated. Let's start from the beginning. Part 1. Weakness. Let's start with the Death House. A lot of people tell you not to run Death House, that it's just incredibly deadly, it's out of place, and I don't think it is. Here's what I did. The group is roaming through a forest, and the mists that blocked their way back start covering the whole place. They start from the ground up, as rain starts pouring down. Visibility is reduced. You cannot see even 5 feet away from you. And suddenly, a warm, lit home shows up, offering shelter from the rain, offering shelter from the mists. And the group goes in. When they're in, however, the doors lock behind them, and there is no way out. The Death House is the first prison in Barovia. In this place where your players will be trapped for the next months. And it should feel like that. There is no way out. The windows are black, and if you try to break them, they regenerate. The Death House is living. At the end of the Death House, there is a ceremony where cultists demand a sacrifice. The Death House is hungry for said sacrifice. Instead of waiting till the end, put this at the very start. Let them hear that chanting. Let them hear, one must die. Start foreshadowing that this is a horrible, dangerous place, that playing around can lead to their death, that they must be careful when they're moving, that they must be on their toes. You never should run a game thinking of killing a character. You never should. However, if someone does die in the Death House, then the sacrifice has been completed and the house is satisfied. Instead of TPKing, which honestly leads to nothing, the house consumes the body of the fallen, and then the players appear outside of a home, not like the one they were before in. The lights are off, the walls are rotted, and you can clearly see the evidence of hundreds of years passing through this building. And that's how they complete the Death House if one does perish. Otherwise, if they do face the shambling mound and refuse to provide a sacrifice, that is when the doors unlock. As soon as they face the final boss and potentially start running away because those things are terrifying, then they can exit. They have given the mad god the chance to take their lives and managed to keep them, and they have completed the Death House. In this part, you will also want to introduce the 3 major monster factions. These would be the Vampire Spawn, the Strahd Zombies, and the Werewolves. I suggest making some changes to them. Let's start with the Spawns and introduce the freshly formed Vampire Spawn. These creatures still remain somewhat sentient of the lives they had before. Think of Doru, the poor boy who lies underneath a church in the village of Barovia. He knows who he is. He knows he has become a monster, and he's trying his best not to attack his father or destroy the town. He is, at this point, a poor person who was trapped into this horrible undeath by Strahd. These creatures are weaker than normal vampire spawn. They are not resistant to weapon attacks, and they are entirely motionless and unresponsive during the day. If you are lucky enough to find them when there is still light outside, you can drive a stake through their heart, and they will oppose no resistance. But you will have to bear the fact that you just killed someone who was likely innocent, but who had no way back. Just take away the resistances, and they're a pretty good monster to use. Make sure to use them as humans though. They still ask for help. They nicely ask for blood because that is all they crave, but not because they're a monster, but instead because they have been turned into one. The second one are the werewolves, or I must say the starving werewolves. You see, the werewolves lie near Kretsk. Here they thrive. They have plenty of prey. They have a pretty strong society. However, the weakest ones have been shunned and have been expelled. Now forced to roam eastern Barovia, they struggle to find any form of food and sustenance. So they have succumbed to their instincts and are targeting travelers. If the party is unlucky enough to find them, they won't find the terrifying monster that werewolves usually are. Their immunity to non-magical weapons has been substituted with a resistance, and they are now weak and vulnerable to silvered weapons, which burn into their flesh. If these werewolves are taken below a certain threshold in HP, they will go to their knees and beg for their lives, for they are only animals and people who have been left with no other alternative. They are pathetic once you have beaten them, and their instinct is no more than just seeking food. If your party were to befriend one and feed it, and provide shelter, they might come back to their former glory, but at the moment, they are honestly pathetic. Finally, Strahd Zombies. Strahd Zombies, as written, are pretty cool. They keep on losing their limbs, however the limbs still attack once on the ground. And you feel like you cannot beat them, and there is no end to them. However, I feel like there's an even better alternative, and that is to make them psychologically terrifying. Strahd Zombies are created by Lord Strahd himself, who is obsessed with making Barovians feel like they're trapped in this land. Those who oppose him are given the most horrible of treatments and destinies. They become zombies, however they remain conscious. When one approaches a Strahd zombie, their eyes are not lifeless, quite the contrary. They are teary-eyed, still glimmering, as those of a crying person. Instead of yelling for brains or food or flesh or just groaning, they ask for help. They just want it all to end. They have no control over their bodies, and they are forced to keep on doing these horrible things. If you kill them, if you take them down, they're not dead yet. Instead, they fall to the ground, unable to keep on moving, unable to keep on fighting, but still asking for help, still screaming for sweet release, as they are trapped in this eternal undeath. I will link a post I wrote some time ago about making these Strahd zombies more effective as psychological elements. During this moment, your party will also likely encounter the hags, and will be forced to run away from them. There are threats that they cannot face just yet. That takes us to part 2, hope. When the group thinks that they might get a chance, that they might help the people of the valley. In this section, your party will become able of doing superhuman things, such as casting a firebolt capable of reducing a building to smithereens within seconds, or attacking twice with a longsword every 6 seconds. All jokes aside, here your party can actually start doing things. If they wish to help people, they can. They now have the power to do so. Of course, if Strahd were to face them, they will have no chance whatsoever. They will also face the fact that Strahd is not the only monster here. Quite the contrary. Public figures such as the Burgomaster, Lady Fiona Watcher, are also monsters in their own right. They care not for others, but only for their own ideals of the world, and are willing to step over everyone else to achieve them. The Burgomaster is currently obsessed with his political opponents and will take any excuse to reduce them to nothing. In my campaign, the party discovered that there was a demon cult out there. And of course they went to the highest authority to seek help. The Burgomaster, however, saw this as an opportunity to get rid of his political enemies. The next morning, the party awoke to a village of Vallaki, where every single house had been broken into, and those houses where there was evidence of political enmity against the Burgomaster, the people were taken away and driven to the main plaza. The Festival of the Burning Sun took place, except hay was not the only thing burned. Those that opposed the Burgomaster were labeled as demon cultists and were burned at the stake as a form of ceremony. The village would never recover from this. About 1 in 5 people gone, just because they dared to oppose the regime. Monsters like these are plenty in Barovia. You don't have to be undead, a devil, or a demon to be a monstrous in Barovia, and that should be evidenced once, twice, or as many times as it's necessary, till your party understands that a lot of these people really aren't worth saving. In this part, your party will also meet Strahd. Strahd now regards them as toys, as things to be played with, as entertainment, and he will invite them to have dinner at his place. There, he will suggest that they join him, that they help him in his endeavors to woo beautiful Irina Kulian. They will join him regardless of whether they want to or not. They have no choice but to say yes, unless they're willing to just throw their lives right there, right then. They have to lie and they have to promise to do horrible things just to keep him entertained. If they do piss Strahd off, he will take retribution, however, and show them just how powerful he is. Once they acquire some of the relics, they will become a threat. They will become way too powerful for Strahd to be comfortable with. And that is when the third part starts. The war. Both your players and Strahd will try to recruit an army at this point. Your players will want to be as prepared as possible for their eventual attack on Castle Ravenloft. And Strahd, despite being quite megalomaniac, quite a despot, he will recognize that the party is in fact a threat, and he will go to the werewolves, to the druids, to anyone who will listen, and make them join his cause to hunt them down. The thing with war, however, is that it affects everyone, not just the fighters. There will be a lot of casualties. Your players will have to make the decision to send innocent people to their death if they want to win that war. They will have to compromise. They will have to be okay with atrocities happening if they want to extend any hope whatsoever. Strahd will no longer just target them, but also everything they care for. If they have made friends along the way, they shouldn't be surprised to find them hanged in their own place at the morning, after Strahd was there last night. Strahd knows no boundaries. He sees every person in the Valley of Barovia as his property, and as such, he is willing to do whatever to take them down, both emotionally, psychologically, and eventually physically. When the fight eventually happens, your party will likely come out victor, but not without casualties. Hundreds of people will die because of them. And they will realize that even though they have killed Strahd, it is not over yet. They have simply opened a window where they can escape. And if they truly want to free the village, the Valley of Barovia, they need to keep on pushing forward and face an evil god, Vampire himself. They likely won't. They likely will just want to go back to their lives and have to be okay with leaving everyone behind, with leaving those still trapped in Barovia there, hopeless, realizing that if they truly wanted to be heroes, they would have to give up everything they ever had, everything they ever stood for, just for the hope, for the vain wish that everything will someday be okay in the valley. Now, D&D is always about having fun with your friends. Of course there will be jokes, of course there will be some comedic moments, and that's okay, you need them. You cannot just always be gloomy for the 6 months that it takes to complete the campaign. However, it's important to focus on the themes of the game you're playing. It's important to play into these themes and truly nail down those things that you want your players to feel. Make them feel hopeless, make them feel afraid, make them feel terrified of Strahd himself. It's not about killing them. It's about letting them know that they are trapped and there is no way out. This has been the Game Manager. If you like this content, leave me a like, subscribe, and I'll keep them up. If you would like to say anything, I would love to hear you. I know the way I run Curse of Strahd is quite different from most people. However, I've had quite a bit of success, and I thought I maybe would share it with the world. Until next time, keep playing, keep having fun.